Keeping a consistent lineup is one of the most difficult aspects of being in a Christian band. Unfortunately, the problems caused by having the wrong people in the band are something most musicians have to face from time to time. Many of these problems occur because we do not understand or communicate clearly the mission and goals of our band during the audition process.
So how many band members should be in your Christian band? The answer is as many as it takes to accomplish the mission and goals God has called your band to do. Let's look at some of the general categories or types of bands that might fulfill the mission and goals you feel called to. First, there's career music ministers. Then there's tent makers. And finally, we'll look at bands of brothers.
Before we define these categories, which are Mariaisms, not industry standard terms, we need to clearly emphasize that no one category is right or better than another. These categories are simply ways to help define the different types of ministries that God may have called your band to. Our goal here is to help you get a better picture of where you're headed as a band and to make sure that you're heading where you believe God has called you to be, both personally and as a band.
So first, let's look at career music ministers. This type of band has a very clear goal of eventually being able to make a reasonable living from being in a band. The band wants to do the work of the ministry full-time without day jobs. The members are willing to do whatever it takes to make that happen, including sacrificing their personal lifestyles. Travel and food expenses are a big part of this band's budget, so starting out with 3 members is highly recommended. As the band gains a large fan base, performance fees will increase, and at that point, adding a 4th member becomes feasible. Here's an example of a 3-piece band's income and expenses compared to a 5-piece band. A gig pays the 5-piece band $500. They incur $30 in gas expense because they have to travel in 2 vehicles. The promoter feeds the band dinner, but after the gig they buy pizza and pop for $10 per person. And the band replaced a broken cord for $10, which is counted as a band expense. The remaining money is split up equally. The band would make a profit of $410 or $82 per member. The same venue pays a 3-piece band the same $500. They incur $15 in gas expenses because they can fit into 1 vehicle. This band also buys pizza and pop after the show for $10 per person, but there's only 3 people. And the band still replaces a cord for $10. The 3-piece band makes a profit of $445 or $148.33 each.
Neither $82 nor $148 is great pay for the long day the band members have put in, and $15 per vehicle for gas does not get you very far. Add the expenses of babysitters or spouses traveling with the band, plus paying a sound or light tech, and it's obvious that money is tight. Now consider that 500 gigs are rare for local bands. Today's norm in the Christian market for local bands is 0 up to an offering of less than $100, plus whatever merchandise the band sells. Wisdom dictates that the band called to be career music ministers should have as few members as possible, usually 3, to start, and add more people only as they can afford it. Bands in this category that start with more members take longer to receive a paycheck, so they must work their day jobs and put off their calling of working full-time in ministry. Career music ministers can head off potential problems when auditioning bandmates by explaining that no one gets time off and everyone works hard, at the gig and in between, doing as much of the band business themselves as possible to reduce expenses and grow their fan base quickly. This group runs fast and lean, so any member that's unable or unwilling to put in 100% of effort 100% of the time for any reason has to be replaced. Very few musicians are called to be career music ministers. Most of us fit into one of the next 2 categories or a combination of the 2. Most Christian bands are either tent makers or bands of brothers.
Now let's look at tent makers. Tent maker bands follow Paul's model of ministry, supporting themselves and their ministries by working day jobs. You'll see this in Acts 18:1-4. There are many reasons why the members of this type of band want to keep their job, but most often it's because they know that their music ministry cannot support their families. These bands are extremely focused on their ministry first and their day jobs second. God often provides jobs that are flexible enough to allow for a musician's crazy schedule.
Tent maker bands are some of the most difficult ministries to be involved with because of the workload of the band and a job. Often these bands play more shows per year than career music minister bands because they do not have to charge large performance fees. They can afford to play small venues to smaller crowds, so these bands are often targeted to a specific audience demographic. Tent maker bands are not as restricted in the number of members as career music minister bands. There is no right or optimal number of people to be in this band. Typically, the members not only support themselves, but also put money into the band to cover its expenses, so the band can have as many members as are willing to pay to play. This is the most difficult type of band member to find, so the bands usually stay somewhat small, often with 4 to 5 members. Potential problems with band members can be avoided by explaining exactly what's expected from the band members during the audition. Many tent maker band members work their 40-hour-a-week job and then put in an additional 20 to 30 hours a week, practicing, playing, and managing the band's business. Of course, they also contribute financially to do this ministry. Their families sacrifice not only the money, but time away from the band member as well. It's highly recommended that potential new band members for a tent maker band have their spouses talk to other band spouses before making the final decision to join the band.
And finally, let's look at the band of brothers. It's often been said that the greatest ministry any band will have is to each other, the band members. The Band of Brothers band has this concept as a core ministry goal. This band often functions like a small group from a church, but uses music as a tool to build relationships with each other. This is not to say that they don't produce quality music. Most of these bands are together because of a love of music, and they have the time to develop their talents because they generally don't travel or record as much as the other two categories of bands. Their music quality is often very high.
A band of brothers should have as many members as possible. This type of band will frequently have short Bible studies as part of the practice and hold each other accountable for their personal lifestyles. Typically, a few members come and go, but for the most part, the members develop lifetime relationships. Their focus is not so much on ministering outside the band, although they obviously do that when they have a gig. Their primary concern is to take care of and support each other. Each of them is stronger and better off for it. Their families benefit from the strength the band member receives from the group, and they're often included in band activities. The Band of Brothers does not usually do extensive touring, preferring to contribute to their local communities with free or low-cost music. Problems often arise with new band members for this type of band when the band does not clearly state that they are not looking to become either career music ministers or tent makers. Musicians who want to do more with their music career should not be encouraged to join this type of band because they'll always be pushing the rest of the band to change. Many bands have qualities from 2 or more of these categories, and there's nothing wrong with that. The key is to be aware of what God has called your band to do and to decide on the number of band members accordingly. Then, when it's time to audition potential new members, the vision of your ministry can be communicated more clearly.
The more you can clearly define your band's mission, the more effective you'll be. When your band has a clear message and agrees on where you want to be in ministry, you'll have unity. Your decisions will be easier as you develop steps to best accomplish your mission. Your ministry will be targeted to the people you can help most. How can you be more specific about the kind of ministry God has for you to do? Define Your Christian Band's Mission is a free 5-part online mini course to help you lay a solid foundation for your music ministry. We'll take a look at how God has prepared you with past experiences and where your heart's desire is now. We'll also look at how band members' individual desires and stories can combine to make interesting music and a powerful ministry. Click the link below to sign up for this free course.